So I am holding a crochet hook here in my hand, and in this video I want to show you 5 smart crochet techniques you absolutely need to know as a knitter. You might already know how to fix knitting mistakes with a crochet hook, but there are quite a lot of other vital techniques you definitely don't want to miss. Techniques that are so easy and yet make all the difference. So let's dive right into it and show you some basic crochet for knitters. The first thing I want to show you is the so-called crochet cast on. This is a wonderful and very versatile cast on method any knitter should know, and the best part, it's super simple. So you start the crochet cast on with a simple slip knot any way you like. I always start in the slingshot position and do a simple slip knot. And from here you need to do a simple crochet chain stitch around your knitting needle. So a chain stitch is the most basic crochet stitch, and what you are basically doing is you're just pulling the working yarn through that loop. That's already it. Pull the working yarn through. Pull through. So for a continental knitter, this should be super easy. And in this case, you need to do it around your knitting needle. So one more time, you start with a simple slip knot. And then you need to place your knitting needle in between the working yarn and your crochet hook. And then do one chain stitch. Then bring the working yarn to the back of your needle and do another chain stitch. Bring the working yarn to the back of your knitting needle, do another chain stitch. So this is super easy. You can also do it like this. So the working yarn is in the back, the crochet hook here in front, and then you wrap the yarn around like this, pull through. Wrap the working yarn around like this, pull through. Either method works, so just do whatever you feel is easier for you. It will create the exact same cast on edge. And once you cast on the required number of stitches, let's do one more stitch here. You can simply place that loop here back to the knitting needle and start knitting across. Now I told you this method is super versatile, and what you can do is you can use the exact same method as a provisional cast on. So just like before, you are crocheting chain stitches around your knitting needle, but this time you do it using scrap yarn. And once you cast on the required number of stitches, you don't slip that last stitch back to the knitting needle. Instead, you add a couple of more chain stitches, and then you break the yarn, and then you pick up the yarn you actually want to knit with, and you simply knit across. So you simply knit across with a different yarn, and I'm going to fast forward here and knit a couple of rows. And then later on you can simply unravel this end here and pick up stitches as you do that. That's the first stitch. And then simply pick up the stitches as you unravel. Oops. Unravel. And start knitting in the other direction. You can also pick up the stitches first and then unravel. I have a full tutorial on this kind of provisional cast on. I'll link it to you up in here. And here's one more trick. You can also use a crochet hook for any other cast on that is a variation of the simple chain stitch. So for example, you could do a simple cable cast on using a crochet hook. So you pull the yarn through with your crochet hook instead of your knitting needle and do a cable cast on like this. So for example, continental knitters always, well, It can be a bit difficult if you're holding the yarn in the left hand, and in these cases you can simply do it with a crochet hook. Of course, you can also do a knitted cast on with a crochet hook. In this case, you have to go directly into the loops. So this is a possibility. Just one word of warning here. As a knitter, you really should feel comfortable with pulling the yarn through the loop here without a hook. So using shortcuts like these might actually hinder your progress in other areas where you cannot employ a crochet hook. The second thing you can do with a crochet hook is fixing mistakes. So whenever you drop a stitch and it unravels a couple of rows, you can simply pick it up with your crochet hook and then pull the first little strand here in the back through and do simple chain stitches all the way up to the current row. And whenever you need to fix a purl stitch, this little strand here needs to be in front and you need to pull it through coming from the back, and in this manner you can recreate a purl stitch. I have a full video on fixing mistakes here on YouTube with so many other tips and tricks. I'll link it to you up in here because I want to concentrate on other vital crochet skills in this video. Method number 3, the crochet bind off. You can also use a crochet hook to bind off stitches, and guess what? You don't need to know more than just a simple chain stitch either. Isn't that fun? In fact, by now you might have realized that knitting is just crocheting chain stitches more or less, and that's why things like Tunisian crochet works. Either way, to bind off stitches using a crochet hook, simply pull the yarn through the first stitch and drop it off the needles. Then insert the crochet hook into the second stitch, pull the yarn through and drop it off the needles. Now you have 2 stitches on your crochet hook, and now simply pull the first stitch through the second. You bound off your first stitch. From here, insert the first loop, pull the yarn through, drop it off. You got 2 stitches on your crochet hook again, so pull the first one through the second. Create another loop, pull through. Create another loop, pull through. So this is super simple. And quite a lot of people ask me why I didn't include this bind off in my bind off tutorial. But the thing is, you really need to realize that this isn't actually a different bind off. It will create the exact same edge as the standard bind off. It's just a different way to get there. So instead of passing that stitch over, you pull that loop through, but the result will be the exact same edge. So give it a try, and if that's easier for you, then absolutely stick to this technique. Just make sure that you are using a hook in the same size or 1 or 2 sizes bigger for a stretchier edge, but you can also crochet a bit looser if you don't have one at home. And here for that very last stitch, just break the yarn and pull the last stitch through just the way you would for a standard bind off, and in that manner you can bind off stitches using a crochet hook. And here is the 4th technique I want to show you. You can also use a crochet hook to pick up stitches. So when you're knitting, I don't know, a cardigan and you want to add buttons, or you're knitting entrelac, or you're knitting some traditional socks, and then you will often be in a position where you need to pick up stitches, and this can be done with a crochet hook as well. So let's suppose I want to pick up stitches from this edge here. So pick up the working yarn the way you usually would, and then just grab the yarn. And I usually do a second stitch, because if you only have one stitch on the needles, it's very easy to for the needle to slip out again. And from there, I just pick up one stitch at a time using my crochet hook. And I love this because I am a tight knitter, and fishing the yarn through with my knitting needle is often very tricky. So I will typically use a rather small hook with a sharp point and pick up the stitches like that, and I find it's very easy. Just make sure that you slip the resulting stitch to the knitting needle in a way that the leading leg here is on the right side and not twisted. So let me see if I can replicate it. Not like this with the leading leg here on the left side, because then you will create a twisted stitch. But you know, if you accidentally do this, no problem. Just knit this stitch here through the back loop in the next round and it will be all right, or do it on purpose to prevent holes. And here is one tip. Each month I release a knitting tutorial on my Patreon account with special knitting tips I don't want to share in public. And the latest episode is all about the secrets of picking up stitches and how to do it the right way. So if you want to access these tips, if you want to support my work and ensure that I will be able to create videos like this one, then consider becoming a patron. I'll add a link to my Patreon account in the description below. The fifth technique I want to show you requires a little bit more crochet knowledge, but you should absolutely consider embellishing your knitting with a little bit of crochet. It's much easier and faster than embroidery and can look quite stellar. So it starts with simple things like adding a row of chain stitches around your garter stitch coaster. So all I do is I just add a little bit of chain stitches here around the edges. So the exact same technique we've been using the whole video, and create this stunning little edge here in a contrasting color. Doesn't this look beautiful? And it's just so simple. But of course you can do much fancier things as well. For example, I have this super simple cute little mushroom pattern on my blog, and here I add this little wheel here with a crochet hook by simply doing a row of double crochets around the side. I mean, of course you could do the same with knitting needles by picking up stitches and so on, but it would be much more complicated, and you know, this looks very cute and lovely in my opinion. Of course, you can also embellish your scarves, shawls, or knitted blankets with a crochet border. And often this can be much easier as you are basically combining picking up the stitches and doing the edges. So it can be just a row of double or treble crochets, or maybe you want to add a lovely little scallop or shell stitch here. And I really feel that adding crochet highlights can be a very lovely idea, especially for toy knitting. Imagine you are doing a little doll and then you crochet a little white collar to a knitted dress, or for example sock knitting. You can add a little bit of a lace border to the cuff and it will look just stunning. What you can also do is you can add some vertical highlights to your knitting. So you are basically just doing a row of chain stitches here through your knitting. This can be a bit more tricky because you are basically fishing for the yarn on the wrong side without really being able to see it. But if you are patient, then if you combine this with stripes, you will be able to knit something that almost looks like a tartan. And of course, a similar technique is also used for steeking. So let me know if you want me to record a full video on steeking. So cutting a circular project open in the middle after securing the stitches so they won't unravel. Now here is a last little bonus tip. You can also use a crochet hook as a tool. So for example, when I'm knitting these cute little pumpkins, there is a knit along available here on my YouTube channel in case you are interested. Then I often use a small crochet hook to distribute the stuffing here on the inside. If I notice, well, things could look a bit neater. And then I just go in and pull the stuffing where I want it to be. Or for example, often you end up with a pulled out stitch, you know, when a piece of jewelry gets caught or so. And then you can use a crochet hook to pull that loop through to the backside and hide it. I mean, usually you should try to redistribute the yarn, but sometimes, you know, you tear the little strand apart on top of that, and then you can hide it on the wrong side and try to seam in the tails with a couple of careful stitches so it will be less visible here on the right side. Anyway, I hope this video made you realize that knowing a bit of basic crochet can really add a whole new dimension to your knitting. Often I see people thinking in knitting versus crochet, and especially beginners are often wondering which is better or easier or faster. Should I start knitting or crochet? And I honestly believe that you achieve the best results when you combine them. And in a way, I feel it's a bit silly to think in knitting versus crochet. You are pulling yarn through loops or little holes using metal or wood, and often the results are structurally the same. And I personally feel you shouldn't shy away from it just because some people call it sewing, embroidery, crochet, knolle binding, or knitting. It's totally okay to focus on one craft, but it's equally as important to realize that the distinction between the different needle crafts is hazy at best, and often it's very difficult to say where one ends and the next starts. Anyway, that's how to crochet for knitters. Please like this video if you enjoyed watching, comment with your feedback and your questions, and of course, don't forget to subscribe in case you don't want to miss any new videos. Happy knitting and enjoy the rest of your day.